just explore with you what Brian has just laid out there. In addition to the political problems that the Chinese Communist Party is facing, not least of which arising from economic challenges that several of you have spoken to, there's also this demographic problem rising from basically the knock-on effects of their one-child policy. There's a lot of grounds for restiveness. Would you agree that, point one, that the Chinese people would probably, left to their own devices, default to just another authoritarian system, if not a communist one, something else? Were these the cumulative effects of all of these things? And then we ought to throw COVID probably and that nightmare on top of it all. Do you think that if Xi is indeed in any trouble as a result of all of those things, that there is an opportunity for the Chinese people to come out of this not as a threat to us, not as seeking global domination, maybe under a different leader and system, but still very much hostile to us?
It's a great and important question. First, just let me say it's been an extraordinary intelligence briefing that we've been privileged to participate in and that I get to be a part of. And the speculation to me just leads to a sense that there is tremendous unrest, there's uncertainty, there's potential chaos. But I also completely agree with the notion that this is all bigger than one man. Frank, to your question, could the Chinese people somehow come out of this in a more democratic America-looking way because of their demographic? I love thinking that that's the way things go. I think that there's been so much work because of the Chinese Communist Party, the PLA, Xi Jinping, the general ideology, the efforts, the money spent and expended globally in creating an infrastructure whose purpose is for global domination. Belt Road Initiative, for example, there in how many hundred, something countries. The work that's just been done here with buying farmland, with various kinds of agro-terrorism, building the Navy, positioning themselves in one direction or another with the island chains, money invested in our universities. In every way, they have been setting the stage for unrestricted warfare up to and including kinetic warfare. And I just don't see them turning that ship around. However it looks in the moment, I don't know there's lots of speculation here. We don't know how it's going to be, but I cannot see a squandering of that investment, of that effort, of that ideology. And not only those things, but here in the United States, and we talk about this all the time, there's a tremendous lack of awareness of any of this going on. As I've said, if war is being waged against you and you're not even aware, can you still lose? And we have, largely speaking, been losing. We had the balloon that went over the country. We had, and in particular, over military installations, we had drones. Every time we turn around, there's some new facet of Chinese power being infiltrated into our country. Fentanyl, TikTok, we know this whole litany. And we are so supremely unaware of it that it seems to me unrealistically optimistic to imagine that would not continue to be capitalized upon whoever continues to be or replaces Xi Jinping. Communism is bigger than one man. It is an ideology which is predicated on totalitarianism and undermining those of us who believe in freedom. You mentioned COVID, Frank. Part of how we've sort of capitulated to all of this is in, by the way, calling it COVID. We keep capitulating to preferred narratives. And why aren't we calling it the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus? We keep ceding ground in every possible way. And along with that ground, we are ceding freedom. We are seizing cognition of the actual situation. I like to imagine this is an opportunity for China, for the Lao Beijing, for the good people to have their America moment. I love what Brian said. They are embracing, at least on the surface, the values that made us great. And why are they the values that made us great? Because they are what makes a nation great. They are what contribute to freedom, to flourishing, to prosperity, to all good things. We seem to have lost the bubble on that, and they are now, at least in part, embracing it. They learned from the Cold War against the Soviet Union lessons about how much better to do things, and we seem to have forgotten everything that we learned. And to me, I think we need to continue to be absolutely vigilant, and we need to be proud of, cognizant of, courageous about, and confident in all those things that made us great and need to continue to make us great in the face of a threat that I can't imagine is actually dissipating, whatever condition Xi Jinping is in.
Thank you, Karen. Grant, John spoke a little bit about your travels in South Korea, and of course you're a bit forward deployed in Japan, broadcasting into Communist China and Mandarin, as I understand it, among other places where we're sort of standing down. And it's not to say that, there aren't problems with VOA or Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, what have you, but that this would seem an inopportune moment to be, essentially ceding the information battle space, which is, as you mentioned earlier, populated inside China, as well as here, for that matter, to a fairly well by the Chinese. What are your thoughts about this idea that we are not preparing or maintaining even the kind of capabilities that we should for the political warfare dimension of pushing back on these Chinese ambitions and threats?
Well, from the very beginning, the notion that it's warfare is inimical to how too many Americans see China, which has openly declared people's war on us. So I think we first need to recognize that, in fact, we are in a state of war with them one way or another, and then decide how to address it. And the things that you suggest are exactly right. Projection of soft power. There was a time these things were called coca-colonialism, which I always kind of admired, because the idea was we spread our products, if not our values, in a soft way. And I know that this is one of the tactics that we use against this, that helped bring the Soviet Union down. That kind of projection, how much were they willing to risk in order to get Levi's, for example. So to shut off communication is a terrible idea. Voice of America at one time, I do think, had tremendous value. Now, if it projects not our actual American values, but in fact theirs, I don't think there's value to it. But I always think that kind of projection of who we are, what our values are, what we believe in, and then give, to some extent, support, tacit or not, to those who would rather be on our side than not. It's always a good thing. I think we've always tried, we've always been the beacon around the world from even before we were a nation, that we are the shining city on the hill. To decide to squelch that vision of us, or to keep it under a barrel, or whatever your favorite imagery is, I think is not a good idea. And I don't think those tactics are excessive. If we are considering that we are in a war one way or another, finding those strategies of political warfare are all to the good, not only for us, but for them. But first, we do have to recognize that we are in a state of war with them and act accordingly.
Indeed. Brian, I want to bring you back to the home front for another run at this. You have been